Good evening. On October 14th, Sheriff Pond stood before us and proposed the idea that killer whales survive longer in the wild than in captivity. However, no piece of evidence in her speech directly defended this idea. 3 of Cher's sources are PDF files, and 1 is an excerpt from a book. This allowed me to read every word of every piece of evidence cited. First, I would like to talk about some of the language used by Cher. She states, orcas in the wild have much longer life expectancies than whales in captivity. Let us focus in on the word expectancy. Webster's Online Dictionary defines it as the act of looking forward or anticipating. I say with confidence that I am looking forward and anticipating on living until I'm 200 years old. However, this is not likely, thus presenting the difference between expectancy and reality. Not once did Cher state the average life of an orca in captivity versus an orca in the wild, nor did any one of her sources of evidence listed in her citations page. Next, I would like to focus on Cher's definition of an orca. Cher states that orca whales are defined as mammals that adapt to aquatic life. WordNet.web defines aquatic as relating to or consisting or being in water. There is no specification of what type of water or the surroundings of the water. Therefore, if orcas are mammals able to adapt to aquatic life, then why can they not adapt to the aquatic life of SeaWorld or other places of so-called captivity? Cher does not educate us on her idea of aquatic life and never states why she believes they need to adapt to a specific type of aquatic life. Second, I would like to speak of Cher's first secondary claim, in which she states orcas suffer from malnutrition in aquariums because they are fed frozen food that is stuffed with filled nutrients. Cher points out the fact that frozen food diminishes some of the nutritional value of the food. This is true, which is why, according to seachoice.org, trainers stuff food with filled nutrients. Cher even stated herself that trainers tend to stuff the food with supplemental oils so they get enough to eat. However, later in the speech, Cher brings up the idea that orcas do not eat enough in captivity. She states they eat 3 to 4% of their body weight in captivity, which is not enough. Yet according to orcaspirit.com, in the wild, adult killer whales eat approximately 3 to 4% of their body weight in food per day. Yet according to Cher, in captivity, the same amount of food is not enough, even when it is stuffed with nutritional supplements. Not one of the sources listed by Cher, again, shares the same view that this is not enough food, which raises the question of where this information was derived. Third, I want to talk about Cher's next secondary claim, which she suggests the size of the aquarium has an effect on an orca's dorsal fin. In many cases, the aquarium does play a part in the bending of the fin. However, according to orcanetwork.org, a source used by Cher, the most likely cause of such disfigurement is interactions with long lines. For those not familiar with fishing, seachoice.org defines long lines by stating, a long line is made up of a main fishing line with secondary lines branching off it. This, they say, is the #1 cause of whales' fins bending over, including both whales in captivity and the wild. Now, last time I was at SeaWorld, I did not see any fishermen in the stands hunting whales. Although the bending occurs in captivity, Cher has completely ignored the fact that it occurs just as often, if not more often, in the wild. Regardless, however, according to cascadiaresearch.org, in most cases, bent fins on killer whales play no role in the health of the animal. Yet this was evidence used to help support the proposition that orcas live longer in the wild. Fourth, I would like to talk about Cher's final secondary claim. In this claim, Cher suggests the importance of orcas building a social structure. The main reason for importance of this, according to Cher, is the fact that orcas need to work together to hunt. However, in captivity, there is no reason to hunt when food is given to them. And maybe not forming those structures is a positive thing, because if they form the structures in captivity and in aquariums and learn to hunt in groups, the trainers would likely be the victims. Lastly, I would like to speak of what Cher left out. Cher describes her thoughts on the consequences of captivating a whale. However, she does not speak of the potential consequences of whales in the wild. As orcanetwork.org points out, some of these consequences are diseases such as viral, bacterial, and fungal infection, and parasites, including roundworms, tapeworms, and flukes. Other consequences are human interactions, stranding on shorelines, and whaling, none of which occur in the safe waters of SeaWorld or other places that have given orca whales a sense of free room and board. Cher's proposition, again, is that orca whales survive longer in the wild than in captivity. However, not one piece of evidence derived from this speech directly supports this idea. Thank you.
All right, Seth, I don't have many negative things to say because I thought you did a really nice job identifying what the claim was, giving us some background on the issue. I did think maybe you spent a little more time on this expectancy thing than is necessary. It doesn't really get you that much. The better challenge, I think, is the one that comes after that, where you explain that there's no evidence doing a comparison of life expectancy in the wild to life expectancy in captivity, and that's the real challenge that you're making on that particular point. On the evidence, I thought you did a good job challenging the advocate's evidence on a regular basis, suggesting that it was inconclusive or presenting counterclaims on most of the points. Your labeling was very clear and easy to follow. The statistic, for instance, on the amount of food that they consume in the wild versus the amount of food they consume in captivity, plus the nutrients, I thought was pretty effective. I was a little confused about the long lines that you're talking about on the dorsals, but the best part of the argument was that it doesn't really have an effect on their health, and the advocate didn't say it had an effect on their health, and you have a quote that suggests it doesn't really alter the healthy status of the whale. So, so what if their dorsal bends over? What impact does that have? What inference is being drawn from that? As far as you can tell, there's no reason for us to be worried about that. I did think that there is kind of a hypothetical argument that you have on that last point about the problem with the social structure, and that maybe the alternative would be that they'd be going after the trainers. I thought that is a little bit of a stretch. It's a reasonable challenge to make. It's kind of a press, but there's not much more beyond that. And I think it would have been maybe more useful to talk about the lack of evidence that suggests that there is a problem with the social structure of the whales in this particular situation. And I thought that you did a good comparative argument on the other issues that they might face, and I thought that that was maybe a little bit stronger there. All right, thank you. David, I think you're going to be speaker 5.